Hi everyone, this is Richard. In this video we're going to talk about dropping. So in the previous video we talked about dragging and how there were three steps: drag start, drag, and drag end. Uh, um, Dropping is similar in that it has several different types of states that activate the event listeners also. So the first one would be drag enter, drag over, and then drag leave. Let's put these in the correct order, just to make it easy, okay? So on drag enter, if I have an icon or an element or an object here, and I enter the space, that first initial entering is like drag start. As you enter the space, it triggers the method that you have waiting for it. As I'm dragging over in this space, it triggers drag over, this one right here, and drag leave. Once I leave the space, then it triggers it also. So it's similar to drag in that sense, only it is a stationary place where you do something onto it as opposed to the dragging. So the dropping is you move onto a steady object as opposed to dragging, you're actively moving an object around. Okay? So with that in mind, you have drag data here, right? You can you get some type of data when you actually drag it, and that's the set data. Dropping, you don't actually have that. I haven't seen any evidence that you could actually use data transfer set data for a drop area itself. For here, we could do other things though at the same time. Let's just say, for example, I have an element and I want to be able to drag it over. And as I drag it over, I want to make it bigger. I want to make this drop area bigger. And then as soon as I move away, I want it to shrink. Okay, so I think you probably know web applications that actually do that. It makes it bigger to highlight it, and then you move it over, highlights it, and then it shrinks as soon as you move away the focus. Okay, so let's see if I can, here's the drop zone. It's the basket, right? And how about if I made the dart one also, I'll make this one drop zone also, just so that we can experiment, okay? The drag, we know that. Element list, drop, query selector, all drop zone. So all classes drop zone, just these two, will be accessed. Drop.onDragEnter, onDragOver, onDragLeave. And here, what we'll say is, how do you make it bigger? So when you drag enter, how do you make something bigger and smaller? CSS, right? So what we will do is, this is the mouse event e.target, right? Because when I drag over something, this is the target. When I'm dragging, this is the target. When I'm dropping, this is the target, right? So the target will be the one which you are dropping onto, or at least moving your dragged object over it. All right, so e.target.classes.add, I'm going to add a class called bigger. At the same time, I have to remove this one, right? This was the images class, so I'll have to remove that one. Remove what was called images. Images, okay? And then down here, and notice it's given me a little bit of an error right here. It's not truly an error, it's just a warning itself, warning. And the warning says, so as I drag over it, it's going to change the CSS to something bigger. And I'll say bigger width is 100 pixels. As I leave the space, on drag leave, I'm going to say, let's say var shrink equals e.target. Okay, then I'm going to say shrink dot classes dot add images. So we'll add the images back down because it's going to be the smaller. remove bigger. So you see what we're doing. As you enter it, e.target, you'll add the class bigger, and then you will remove the class images. So you will add this class and remove this class. All right, so the object will be bigger. And you will here, because the syntax is complaining right here, this is perfectly valid syntax, but it doesn't like it. The editor doesn't want you jumping too many steps at a time, so we'll just say, we'll make it happy. Var shrink equals e.target, shrink.classes.add images. We'll add the images back, so it'll be a smaller pixels, 50 pixels, and we'll remove the bigger. Okay, so let's give that a try. So I drag this over, it gets bigger, and I move it out of sight, and it gets smaller. Okay, how about this one? Bigger, smaller. Okay, now I at first looked at this and said, wait a minute, if I dragged this, wouldn't both objects get bigger? Because we're talking about changing the images to to remove the images class to the bigger class, right? Why don't both of them actually get bigger? Well, when you think about it, because remember I said e.target, the mouse event e, the target is here. So for this particular object, we're going and adding images and removing bigger, or vice versa. But not the other one, because that's not the target, right? So that's what actually fooled me at first. So that's why that's a very effective way of making it bigger and smaller. And when you think about classes, this is something that practice makes perfect. What else can we do? We can make it bigger, we can change the color, we can do all sorts of things. We can move things around by CSS, because that's how we do things in CSS, right? So that's sort of the steps and how we can do things. And we might do a little bit more of that in the future, but we'll have to see, okay? So thank you very much, and we'll keep going on from there.